Hi, today we're talking about shaken units, what shaken units do, and Joan of Arc gets herself into an interesting situation. Hi, I'm Mr. Cupcake and welcome to the Just Dice League. I'm recently back from Recon 2024 where I got to run several games of Blood and Crown, some demos, some participation games, and some questions came up or kept coming up that I thought were worth highlighting, and we also ran into a situation that kind of shows off the nuances of Joan of Arc's special rules. So let's take a look. Units fall back at 3 times. At the end of an action which caused them to become shaken, at the end of an attack action where they were shaken and took more fatigue, and at the end of an activation where they are still shaken. In this scenario, we have a unit of men-at-arms engaged with a unit of archers. At the end of a melee action, if the archers become shaken, receive 3 fatigue to become shaken, regardless of who initiated the melee action, they would fall back. If the men-at-arms were to follow up, remain in contact, they can initiate another melee attack, potentially. If that attack resulted in the archers receiving no additional fatigue, they would not fall back. However, if they received any fatigue, then at the end of that action, they would fall back a second time. On its next activation, if the archers are still shaken, they will be -1 action. If they cannot rally that shaken state off, then at the end of that action, they would fall back. Depending on the number of starting actions, if they're able to rally that fatigue off, they might have actions left to use. For example, if they were able to activate on a club, they would start with 3 actions, would go down to 2 starting actions, and if they successfully rally that fatigue off with their first action, they could then use that third action. If they're instead activated with 2 actions or potentially even 0 actions, they'll always at least get 1 action to perform a rally. If that is successful, and they were able to remove all their fatigue or at least get down to 1 fatigue, then they could push to get an action. That push would obviously cost them 1 fatigue. Before we continue, I'd like to say a quick thank you to Michael and his wife for this wonderful dice tray. Not only is it gorgeous with the Blood and Crown's logo, but it snaps together so you can lay it flat for easy transport. And of course, it's made out of a wonderful, nice, supple material that will cradle your dice as you roll towards victory. They are in a bit of a transition period right now, but if you are interested in these trays, send them an email at the address on the screen. I'll also include it in the description notes. And again, thank you to Michael and his wife. The next thing I'd like to talk about is exactly what units do when they fall back. By default, units must fall back directly towards their deployment zone. Now at the convention, we ran into an interesting situation playing battle lines where the unit that was falling back had to go straight back. And what would have resulted was that a friendly unit would have been blocked from advancing because in Blood and Crowns, unlike Blood and Plunder, you cannot pass through another unit. If the player had had a command unit within line of sight of the archers and with the banner upgrade, then the archers could have fallen back instead towards the banner, which would have been advantageous because then the friendly unit would have been able to advance. Another situation that can impact falling back is the presence of an enemy unit. In this case, if there had been an enemy unit here, the archers cannot move closer, they must move away from enemy units. So in this case, even if the command unit didn't have the banner upgrade, the archers would fall back at a relative diagonal here, moving further away from both the men-at-arms and this mounted enemy unit. Another product I'd like to highlight are these wonderful activation markers from my friends over at Raven Banner Games. They come in all kinds of nationalities with matching language and icons. They're even doing some game-specific tokens. What I really like about them is their high visibility on the tabletop, and as a GM, it allows you to glance across the table, see which units have activated and which have not. For Crowns, I like them because you can use them to differentiate the units that have kind of an aesthetic similarity. Be sure to check them out at the website on the screen, and the link will also be in the description. The next situation I'd like to talk about came up at the convention, and it has to do with Joan of Arc and her Shed No Blood special rule. She was engaged with a enemy mounted unit, and they performed a melee which resulted in her unit taking 1 fatigue and losing 2 models. This left Joan in an interesting situation where she's the only model left in the unit, and she's unable to contribute any dice to a melee attack, so she was essentially pinned. When the cavalry unit, the opposing unit, was able to perform an action, a melee action, she was forced to make a melee save as the only member of a unit, and thus was immediately eliminated. Had she been engaged with a dismounted unit and been able to activate burst, she could have performed a withdrawal at the cost of 1 fatigue and moved out of contact with the unit. All right, I think that's all I have for today. If you have any additional questions, please let me know in the comments. You can also reach me at the Facebook group or on the Discord channel. And if you'd like to get a copy of the rules, you can get them directly from firelockgames.com or one of several vendors. And until next time, game well. Game very well.